Hey everyone, I'm Melanie from Streamline Legal, where we help law firms get the most out of their practice management software. Tonight we're talking about checklists. I talk to a lot of attorneys and their staff, and oftentimes we'll talk about some of the resources that they have in place for their staff and some of the things that they use and the tools they use in order to get things done. And oftentimes a checklist does come up, and checklists can be really great tools. Obviously, they can work as a fail-safe to try and make sure that you're not forgetting things, making sure that you're doing certain steps before a closing, making sure you're getting certain documents prepared before an estate plan. There's all kinds of great ways to use checklists. But I do think that checklists oftentimes fail us as well, because the reality is that a checklist doesn't give us enough information. And so what we really want to do when we're trying to communicate effectively to our staff and to our team is we want to make sure that we're telling them or detailing for them who is going to do what by when and how. These are the details that are important for our team to know so that we can get stuff done together. And without that level of detail, then the checklist itself is only telling us the what. It's only telling us what documents we need or what steps we need to take before the closing. But it doesn't tell us anything about who's going to take those steps or when they're going to be done or how they're going to be done. So in my opinion, the checklist leaves out a lot of detail that can really take your team to the next level. And so really what we need is we need to add the who. We need to start holding our team accountable and saying, okay, this person's responsible for that, then this person's responsible for this piece, especially when we're working in such a fragmented way. When we have staff members in different locations, that makes the communication that much trickier. And so in order to say, this person's going to do that and that person's going to do that, instead of always having to check to see, okay, is this thing done? Is that thing done? That's a lot of checking. And sometimes with a checklist, we might be checking those things a couple of times to see if they're done yet. But what's worse is if no one does them, right? If we look at the checklist and think, okay, well, so-and-so is going to take care of that. I don't need to worry about that. And then all of a sudden it's a day before the closing or a day before the estate plan is going to be signed and no one did it. So we need to make sure that we are adding the who's responsible for these things onto our checklist. And then the when. The when is super important. The when is going to help us be more proactive. It's going to help us have our cases move forward without us feeling like we're having to push them forward. And it gives us more time to address problems that could come up. If I'm going to be more proactive and I'm going to start preparing these documents in advance, or I'm going to start doing these things more in advance, if issues do come up, now I've got time to deal with them. I'm not up against the clock for a hearing or a closing or a client meeting. And then also not just reacting to things on the calendar. I mean, now I'm being proactive, I'm getting stuff done so that when it does show up on the calendar, it's not me thinking, oh my gosh, I have to check to see if we have everything done. No, if we have a time frame for all the things on our checklist, then we know they're going to get done by the time the closing comes, or by the time the hearing comes, or whatever we're working towards. And of course, we can double check these things, and we should double check these things, but we aren't as stressed and thinking that maybe something didn't get done. And then lastly, adding the how to our checklist. The how is super helpful in order to train new staff, so that if we have the details, instead of putting them in a separate procedure manual, if we had them right there with the task as we're assigning it, then it helps the new people, or the people that are just new to that particular task, even if they're not new to our office. It helps give them the level of detail that they need in order to get this thing done, in order to help the team. And so we really want to make sure that we're cutting back on the questions that we're getting asked as the managing attorney or as the owner of the firm, and it gives us more time, both us and our team members, to focus on the higher level stuff, the strategy, because now we're not worried about the minutia, the systematic stuff that gets done every time. That's all written into our into our checklist now. And so really what we've done by adding the who, the when, and the how to our checklist, we've really supercharged it and created more of a workflow than a checklist itself. Because now we have the who does what by when and how, all of that detail in one place, and it creates basically a roadmap for our case or a roadmap for our representation. And this is not just about, it's not just about checking things off a list. This is what we're going to use to communicate within our team. This is what we're going to use to communicate with our team members what the plan is so that they can jump in and out of the case very effectively, get exactly what they need to get done when they need to get it done. And we, as the managing attorneys, don't feel like we are constantly pushing these cases forward because everybody knows it's very clear from the outset what needs to be done on this case. So please do take your checklists, go ahead and supercharge them by adding the who, the when, and the how, and turn them into workflows. I hope this is helpful to you. Have a great evening, and we'll chat soon.